Hello and welcome to the Bible for Worship at St. Paul Lutheran Church on this Easter Sunday, the Sunday of the resurrection. When we hear the story of God raising Jesus from the dead, that becomes the core of the Christian gospel, however and wherever it is told. There are many accounts of the resurrection in Scripture. They have various details within them among the four Gospels and in Paul's writings and even elsewhere. And the variety of ways in which the resurrection is told, the variety of details that are included, results from the fact that the gospel always applies to our individual lives variously. And each account that has been preserved and gathered into our New Testament was originally written to address one situation, one application of that resurrection gospel to the life of a particular individual or community. Well, then, what actually holds them all together? If there is, in fact, one gospel and the resurrection story is the core of that gospel, then how are we to speak about and understand the gospel? Well, taking them all into account, we can see that every story of Jesus' resurrection affirms that it was human constructions aimed at asserting power over and against some other part of the creation that had killed Jesus. It was the arrogance, it was the presumption of often not just one, but many who thought that they could assert their power over what Jesus was and represented. There's this common theme that all participated in Jesus' death. And there is the common affirmation that God raised Jesus from the dead. That makes it clear that what's common in these stories, and therefore core to the gospel, comes with a judgment, it comes with guidance for life, and it comes with good news. As judgment, it means that every human scheme that claims universal power, universal wisdom, universal effectiveness is wrong. There are connections among things within the universe. Is a diversity within the created universe, as God called it good, that no single human scheme or system or wisdom can fully contain. It's why in Paul's letter to the Philippians, he says, it is the peace of God which surpasses understanding. Human understanding cannot grasp the peace with which God holds creation together. And so no human understanding or system built on it will be capable of encompassing all that is in God's creation. The limited basis of our human knowing, our human perception, our human understanding will always insist that in order for the system to be comprehensive, some part of the creation will have to be eliminated. That's not God's choice. That's a human choice. and it is God's judgment that that choice is sinful. Then, as guidance for our lives, the first thing that becomes clear is that humility is the chief virtue. Recognizing these limitations of our human wisdom and understanding and insight and systems and schemes, recognizing that however much of our own lives and our own arenas of life we can in fact control, there are arenas, there are places, there are dynamics that we cannot begin to control and that we must respect as also part of God's good creation. Our first lesson for life guidance is humility is the chief virtue. And our second lesson for life guidance is that the way of life that Jesus pursued, the ministry, the relationships, the way of conducting himself among others, ultimately was vindicated by God. His faithfulness to relationships, his faithfulness to well-being, his faithfulness to community, his faithfulness to healing, his faithfulness ultimately to living in creation the way God gave it to us for us to live in it. All of this love and care and generosity, which ultimately ended up getting him killed, is what God affirms and vindicates, what God brings to life even after worldly powers have killed it. So, as life guidance, the way of Jesus in his life is the only way that has ever led to a life after death and beyond death, a life that conquers death. And that then leads to the fundamental, glorious, celebratory good news of Easter, that the powers of sin and death cannot defeat God, who chooses us for life. God bless.